6 days, and on the 7th day, never disconnected. So when I look at what Arnold has stated as it relates to what you need to do to achieve your vision, I say, okay, well, I'm going to put my own box around that. I've got some new parameters. I'm going to have dinner with my family every night. I don't want to work on weekends. I don't want to work at night. So I have to define a reasonable vision that fits inside those boundaries that I'm creating. That's not to say when I started the business, I didn't work just as hard as I did in corporate, right? But almost 5 years later, I don't anymore, and I don't have to, because those are the boundaries that I want. So I'm not showing you this to say, the only way you achieve is if you work nonstop. You heard Cynthi's comment. I've never heard it called an emergency intervention, but I like it. The idea is not to work forever. We all have to be real. Most of us in this room are business owners. You got to put the time in to build it, to make it what you need to. But today's exercise is about making sure that you don't put the time in forever, right? That you're not constantly doing that year over year over year because you don't stop and work on your business, like Andrea said. That's sort of a new approach. So, a couple things. As I said in the opening remarks, if you're engaged on the laptop, engaged on the phone, engaged in activities throughout the day, you're going to get absolutely nothing out of this. I know I keep saying it because that's what we do as coaches. We poke you and we prod you to get you to put the time you need to put into the business. We're going to go through some heavy stuff this morning. We don't typically go through as heavy of things, but we're going to work through some financial things. Then at one point I'm going to ask you to pull out the laptops and work through a calculator that I take you through. If you're all in on this, it's going to make sense. If you're not all in on this, you're going to want to poke your eyes out. Who wants to be all in? Okay, who wants to poke their eyes out? Corey? Oh, I'm glad Corey raised his hand. We have 2 birthdays yesterday in the room. Do we have anybody else who had a birthday yesterday that I don't know? Corey, happy birthday. Say happy birthday. Happy birthday. Valerie, happy birthday. And
it's your dad's birthday.
Aaron, hold up your phone real quick.
Hold up my phone.
Yeah, just hold it up and turn the video recording on, would you? And face into the room. She loves when I say that. Everybody say happy birthday to my dad really quick, because it's his birthday today. So real quick, happy birthday, Dad! He turns 76 today. All right, so let's go. Snapshot in time. We're going to look at 2 comparable businesses today. The businesses at the starting point are exactly the same. I want to start, and then I'll prove it at the end that this is real data. This is not an actual business, but this is real data from a whole bunch of different businesses that we are able to look into. The idea here is Company A, heavy owner involvement. Company B, less owner involvement. What are our goals as a coaching organization again? Business that works without you and a business that is sellable. Can anyone in the room not sell their business? Please raise your hand. Well, actually, you really can't sell it. He's the only one that's allowed to raise his hand, because he doesn't technically have it. But he can scale it to work better without it. All right, here's Company A. So we got revenue of $500,000. We've got profit of $400,000. Okay, so what this is we can call it a service business. They don't have a lot of expenses. They decide they're going to run it and keep all their expenses down. We know a lot of people like this, right, who want to run their business this way. The owner works 40 to 60 hours a week, depending on the week. The owner's role, focused on everything client. They're doing everything. All the admin work, the billing, sales, networking, daily tasks. Majority of their time is customer facing, right? The business valuation for this would be somewhere, if you're looking at a $400,000 profit, would be somewhere between $0 and $400,000. Now why? Anybody know why? All right, there's nothing to sell. What could they sell? Depending on what they were. Client list. And depending on the type of industry you're in, because we like to keep it real, right? A CPA firm could sell their client list for about a 1x. A law firm probably gets closer to maybe a 1.5, but you got to find a buyer. Selling client lists is a lot harder than selling a business. people don't trust the validity of the client list, right, when it's all said and done. I'm not making this information up. We have a business broker in our group and backed all of those statements up, all right? So think about it conceptually. Inside a year, if I had this business this year, just in the framework of a year, it means my total potential earnings, if I ran this business this year, would be somewhere between $400,000 and $800,000. That make sense to everybody? Right? I highly doubt that the 800 is an achievable number. Right? It's probably more like 400 to 600, but I wanted to give a good scale. So now we got company B. Oh, by the way, do we see this guy? Buried in stuff. Right? Anybody recognize that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know we do. Company B. So now we got a team here doing $500,000. The profit is $275,000 this year. So instead of an 80% profit margin, it's a 55% profit margin. But the owner's working about 30 to 35. We can even say 40 to 45. Right? The owner's role focused on strategic planning, oversight rather than day-to-day operations. They're leading a team. They do still handle some sales and clients, but almost half their time is customer facing. And they're working less hard. The business sale valuation for this business would fall in the 3 to 5x EBITDA, right? So a multiplier on the 275, which says the baseline of valuation for this particular business, if they were to sell it at the end of this year, would be $825,000. Up to $1 million, up to $1,375,000. So the total potential earnings on that year would be 1.1 to $1,650,000. Okay, that makes sense? So less profit, but more when you throw in the valuation. Doc.
How do you calculate total potential earnings?
Yeah, good question. So this statement is completely made up by me. You'll find it nowhere if you Google it. So I'm just sort of saying this is the money you would make. If you made $275,000, right, in profit, you sell your business for somewhere between $825 and $1375. Your total potential earnings when you're looking at this through this siphon would be $275 plus $825, which gets you to 1.1 through this range.
That's plus the valuation.
Plus the valuation, right? Plus the sale, right? When it's all said and done. So obviously, one of the things we're trying to get people to understand is if you work your ass off for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, when you get to the end, do you really want to have nothing to sell? Because there's a big miss there when you look at it. So look at the variances between the two. So find a pointer that works on a TV. So max capacity here on company A, 800,000. Max capacity on company B, 1,650,000. Which one you want? A and B. You want them combined? So glad you sat in front. We're now 5 years down the road. All right? Same scenario. What's happened to company A? Why? Why did company A not grow? Right. Owners doing everything themselves. He's gotten new business, but he loses clients too. Because why? He can't keep up. He's overwhelmed. Starting to get a little run down. Anybody recognize this? I know people do. Revenue remains strong. There's nothing, I am not standing up here saying there's anything wrong with making $400,000. Right? There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying there's the idea in business of work smarter, not harder. That was really good. Try it again. Work not. All right, we're getting there. So owner role, still focused on client accounts, billing, sales, networking, daily tasks. And here's a really good line I hear all the time. I tried to hire someone in the sales department, service department. I had to let him go. You know, Arif, there's just no good people out there. Anybody ever said that out loud? Or, God, these millennials, their work ethic. I'd just rather So, what's the valuation of company A? Remains the same. Now, over the 5-year period, they've made about $2 million. Somewhere between $2 million and $2.4 million. Why? 400,000 times 5. They made what they put into the business. Let's look at company B. What happened to their revenue? Went up. 730,000. For the math whizzes in the room, all that is a 10% increase year over year. That's all that is. What happened to the profit now for company B? Percentage is lower still than company A, so I can brag about my 80% profit margin if I'm running company A, but my dollars just passed them, right? The owner's now down to 25 to 30 hours a week. The owner has been able to invest in the team, to strategize, to work on marketing, networking, other things. They're doing all the strategic planning. They handle a few key clients in sales because that's important to them. They want to, right? It's a good thing to do. That's why they started the business. We got a valuation of that business now. That's $1,230,000 to $2,050,000, right? So the total take home in the 5 years is $2,950,000 to $3,770,000. Real numbers. Real numbers backed up by a broker. What's a business worth in the end? Anybody know the answer to that question? What somebody's willing to pay for it. But these data points exist for a reason. They're real data points. They're real guidelines. All right. I'm going to stop at 10 years. Okay, but here's what 10 years looks like. I now grew my business to 550. For those of you that were at GrowthCLUB, 2 Growth Clubs ago, we had our business broker stand up and do a presentation. There was one thing that he said that resonated with a lot of people in the room. Dave, do you remember what it was? Don't be a
legend.
Right? People are proud. They wear it as a badge of honor to be a legend in their business. What does a business broker feel about being a legend in your business? It's the worst thing you could be. Because what happens when you go away? The whole business is about you. You can't be the legend in your business. From day one, not that I ever think I could be a legend, but from day one, I always pushed marketing to be A&B Performance Group, not a Reef Poison. When a customer does a review for us, which I'm going to ask people to do today, I don't want it to be about the name. We want it to be about the company because we're trying to build the brand, right, when it's all said and done. But this legend went ahead and built his revenue anyway. So he got to 550, maintained his proud 80% profit margin, and now he's making 440. He's increased prices enough because he's in demand. He still loses clients from time to time, but they love him. People want to go to him, they want to use him. The guy's still working 40 to 60 hours a week, doing everything. He's tired, he's ready to retire. I want you to remember that. He's ready to retire because he's burnt himself out. His valuation remains the same, 0 to 400. He has now earned $4 million to $4.5 million over the course of the 10 years. Who would be unhappy with that? It's not bad money. I'm not going to stand here and say, well, that's terrible, right? The individual's clearly made good money, but there is another way. Company B, continuing the 10% increase year over year, which I'm watching people do larger numbers year over year, right? So this is not an unrealistic. For those, somebody said 20%, I can't expect it forever, right? Maybe when you get into like the super high, but as small businesses, we can grow at that rate for a pretty long time, right? Particularly if you're infusing different things in your business. 1180 is the revenue. 720,000 profit, we got it up 61%. Owners been able to contribute to the increase by ensuring their time is balanced between working in and on the business, right? The owner's now down to 20 to 25 hours a week, focused on planning, handles a few clients because they still like it. Owner has a well-balanced life, enjoys hobbies, and is heading into retirement healthy and excited. Ready to roll. The business valuation, $2,150,000 to $3,600,000. Total potential earnings over this time period, $6,830,000 to $8,265,000. Real numbers. This is not just fake fun stuff. There's your chart. There's nothing wrong with earning $4 million, $4.5 million over 10 years. But you got to insert whatever your number is. If your number's 100,000, 200,000, what I want you to What I want you to pay attention to is the gap. So if you're not at 400 and you're at 100, right? Whatever your multiplier is going to be, if you build something that works without you, you can scale it faster and double what you are. You have something to sell. But there's something more important along the way. What's even more important than that along the way? For the 10 years you worked? Yeah, time, quality of life. Yet, 75% of the people in the room continue to hammer it out on their own, right? And so the idea here is how do we get you to think about it a little different? These are the real numbers. I'm not going to go through them because I don't want to start bleeding. But the stuff I put on the screen, backed up, I used it by actually taking some real businesses out there, looked at some actual things up, down. You can see the payrolls on there. For this business here, business B, you can see I grew the payroll, I added expenses. So everything is here as it relates to what a real business would look like. All right? So those numbers that you saw, it's something we can all do inside this room. It's why I want 5 coaches. So I can work 15, 20 hours a week with a handful of people, right? It's why Dr. Spiro could have 5 surgeons, right? And do less. Eileen's shaking, but it's a real thing. It's Alex's story of being able to take an entire month off, right, over the summer because there's someone in there running the office. But we don't have to be done at one. We can continue to scale it and grow. Why would we? Step away when you choose. Whether you stay or sell, your business value is enhanced. Reduce stress and burnout so you can continue to be running a well-oiled machine business. More time and resources. Believe it or not, there are people out there that know things you don't know inside your specialty. Matt surprises me all the time with things. Sometimes Matt's right and I'm wrong. And it's great to have another thought process and another approach on the team. I can't wait to have more. More consistent service quality, even in your absence. So one of the things is I want to take vacation, I shut down my business. Or I'm answering people on vacation or whatever it may be. Right? That's not good quality service no matter what you do. More engaged, responsible team and building value in your business gives you something that you'll be able to fund in the future. Right? Notice I kept the subject lines the same. Business B, business A. So we come to business A. You're strapped to the business and you're unable to get away when you'd like. You guys, for those of you who know me, know you'll hear me talk about, like when I go away, I bring my laptop and I do my calls, and I hate it. No offense to the people I'm interacting with. I don't hate you. I hate the fact that I'm not there yet. And I'm aggressively working towards, when I go away, being able to have something else to do so I can have the flexibility. Okay, so let's kind of get back into frame of mind here. So for the next hour, we're going to be digging into numbers. I know some of you very well, you hate numbers. And I get that. But you can't hate numbers if you're in business. It's like not a thing that's okay. So you have to sort of embrace this piece because we have added to our vision, our own internal vision. So one of our own sort of vision and goals as a company is for every client that we work with to send us a thank you note on their retirement date. That is legitimately what we want. Just a note. Maybe they could send us some money, but really, the note is what we're looking for. Because we poked and prodded and pushed you to be focused on the things you need to do in business to achieve the financial part of your vision. And I'll be very transparent with you. There are many of you in the room that have an emotional vision of when you're going to stop working and what you're going to do as it relates to business. But your financial piece of it does not line up. And you need, right, to get your arms wrapped around it. So we've got a mix of people in the room. Young people, we don't have any old people, except for Bill maybe. But we do have a good amount of medium-aged people who are getting closer and closer to their desired retirement. So for the medium age, right, this example I think will really, really resonate. Right? For the young, be better than the medium age. Right? right? Start looking at your business and specifically what you're doing to work towards your retirement piece of it now. And for those of you that are in the room that don't own, I know we have a handful of people that are in the room right now that don't own, you can still put yourself through the same exercise when it's all said and done. Because you can be thinking about side gigs. If you have an opportunity to earn more within your business, the things you need to be doing to earn more within that business, those are all things that you can be applying to this conversation. Let's go ahead and look at business B. All right, so we remember which business B was?
The good one.
The good one, right? This is, what's that? Paying taxes, right? Business B, business B is our business that has built something that is working without them. But this is their starting point from a financial standpoint. And each of you, in about a half hour, is going to get this tracker. And this is why we sent that note, asking you to bring the average amount you have saved for retirement right now. Be aware consciously of when you would like to stop, right? So just sort of that goal. And then be thoughtful about how much you would like to be spending as it relates to your monthly income in your retirement. Al's in the back of the room. He'll have comments and contributions, I'm sure, throughout, which we expect and look forward to. And here we go. So, business B started with $502,000. This is going to be your input, right? Everybody see that there? So this is what they have right now. Their desired retirement amount. Matt, can you change that to $3 million? Their desired retirement amount, when we change it, will be $3 million. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? So what we have here is the 502 and a desired amount that eventually is going to say 3. Here is what we're projecting as the annual return. So, Al, what is the average annual return someone can expect or plan on in their retirement?
In their retirement,
Well, for their money, working towards their retirement.
somewhere between 5 and 7%,
Right.
pretty reasonable.
So the standard is 5 and 7%. So we used 8, and we threw a 3% inflation calculator in here, right? Al, what's the standard inflation thing to plan for retirement?
I would use 3%.
3%. So far we get a check mark from you? Okay,
Good job.
good. So
Good shot.
we can't argue this. 8 minus 3 equals 5. So this is the calculator we're using. This is an input. So if some of you think you can do better with your money, feel free. Al's probably going to tell you to plan it around 5, right? Because that's the reasonable thing. If you do better, good. You have more money. That's a good thing. This is not changing? No. This worked great last night. And last week. So we'll stick with 4. So Matt, if you don't mind scrolling. So we're now going to say business B is 55 years old. That business owner is 55 years old, right at the top. Their desired retirement age is 65. Okay, those are all inputs. Everything in red is going to be an input that you put in. Their desired monthly retirement income is $25,000 a month. So, Al, is it a good idea to plan to have more money or less money to spend in your retirement?
Plan to have more.
What's that?
You ought to plan to have more
Why?
because you never know what's going to happen.
Right, okay. So for those of you that are going to make your retirement plan and plan on spending less, it's a bad idea. So that's not the idea of how we're sort of working through this. We want to actually be thinking about what is our actual spend going to be. So we put it in at $25,000 a month, which essentially says we're going to spend $300,000 a month. This is where business B is, okay? So everything in the blue essentially says that is an input here. So you got 10 years until retirement. This is saying your retirement stability based on the inputs that we put in there is about 32 years. And you would have money until you're 97.6 years old, right? That's pretty good. The current monthly income for this business is $41,667, all right? And the owner is contributing 5% of that to their retirement? Go ahead, Dean. It's a good question.
87.6%. When your money runs out, 87.6. 32 plus 65. Well,
Yeah.
65. Oh, wait. No. Sorry about that.
That's the years of stability. Yeah. 32 plus 65. So, you now are going to be giving 5%. This is this calculator right here. So it's essentially saying you make $41,667 and you're giving about 5%. Okay? So here's the input on that. So the input, you're going to choose how much you're putting into your retirement, but this is an example with business B. The current monthly retirement contribution would be $2,083. That's 5% of $41,667. Does that make sense to everybody? Essentially, that number is pretty darn close if you're under 50 to your 401k contribution that you can max out. If you're over 50, that number can be bigger. In our research, the average American right now is saving 3.7% of their income. Al, what's your number?
It's pretty close. Actually, it's a lot less for most
Right.
people.
So we're overstating with this 5%. But we're saying if this person's making $300,000 a year, they should be able to do that, right? Because the average American is not making $300,000 a year as it relates to business B. This number here is the gap. So this is essentially saying if you stay saving that amount every month, this is how much you're short every month from a savings standpoint. Does that make sense to everybody? So here we got a $500,000 business. This is business B, operating with a 55% profitability rate. If you remember the first year, this is what it was at. So they're making $275,000. Questions so far? That all line up with business B? Okay. So now let's scroll a little bit lower, and we're going to connect it to the business. So here's how we built this. Each of these is, a pointer would be helpful, 6-month increments. So you see the 6, the 12, the 18, the 24 at the top? Because you're going to be working these numbers in your own time. So each of these is 6-month increments. There's only 2 inputs on here. 2 inputs are, Matt, can you put the cursor on the 5% there? Thank you. So input 1 would be saying, okay, once you've decided how many more years/months you're going to be working, you then have to say, how am I going to grow my business over this time period? Okay? So what we were saying there in that example is business B in that 6-month time period is going to grow their top line revenue by 5%. That make sense? How's the dentist's office doing?
Good.
Okay. And they're going to deliver a 55% profit rate. So these are all business B's metrics because I want to go on a journey with business B. All right? So every 6 months, we did this just simple because we want to align what we showed you as it relates to where business B is with their actual end numbers. So what we said was over the time period that business B is going to continue to work, which is 10 years, which we have at the top, right? 55 to 65. Business B is going to have a 5% increase every 6 months over the 10 years. That gives them essentially that 10%. It's kind of like, our way there. So Matt, if you scroll down now, pause right there. When the line stops being red, that's your last year that you're working based on your inputs above. So the calculation is no longer pulling any more information below. So we're working on the business connecting into what your financial vision is from a retirement standpoint. All right, so line went red at 120 months because that's 10 years. So now we go to the bottom. When you come to the bottom, you have a couple of numbers here. So the first one is your forecasted asset value at retirement. So to pause for a moment, we took all of our calculations and we put them up against some calculators that kind of live out at banks. Has anybody ever done that? Put your numbers in and sort of play with the calculators out on the internet? So we took all our numbers and put it up against that. So everything that shows on this sheet is very much in line with what you would see if you threw this in one of those calculators online. But I will make this statement now. In no means are we attempting to be financial planners for you. We want you, which is why we have Al sponsor and other people come, we want you to be actively engaged with your financial planners, making sure that you are clear that your business is moving you where you want to go. That being said, your 5% savings on a business that's growing 10% year over year for 10 years, that 5% got you $1,353,000. That's the number you landed on. That make sense to everybody? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you wanted $4 million because for some reason we can't change it from 4 to 3. So, you now are short $2.6 million. That's where business B is with that savings plan. That savings plan, unfortunately, is more than what somebody is traditionally saving. This is part of what we find for people. Now, there's a couple of good newses here. Bad English. There's some good news here for our business B, and that is the following. The last year of their business, do you guys remember that their profit was $720,000? Right? We had that line up exactly the same. So their profit is $720,000, and a 3x valuation on that would get them $2.1 million in a sale. That number gets to be added. We're not tax planning here, but that number gets to be added to what you saved at retirement. So that $2.6 million gap just got eroded by $2.1 million. And if you get a 5x, you're actually in a pretty good space. I am not saying that you should 100% base your future, for all of my lawyers in the room, on this number, right? You got to work with a planner. You have to be clear. But this gives you a really good range of understanding what you're saving and how close it is to that emotional goal you have for your vision. Okay? So you end with a 61% profit margin. Let's say you land in the 4x, right? Which Russell said for a business like this, he sees it more as a 4 to a 5x potential for sale. So if that's the case, you're going to end up at about a plus $400,000 point as it relates to your retirement goal. So you landed about $4.4 million, right, when it's all said and done. So Matt, would you just scroll back up to the top real quick? One problem with this, go down. Actually, it isn't a problem. When you do 3 million, the issue is this says 85. So we're pointing here the age when funds run out. When the number is $3 million, which is how we started it, before it somehow magically became 4 million, it was 85. No one should plan to die at 85, right? I think at this point it's a couple of years below the life expectancy. So we then would go back, but there's money here to go back to say we're going to make that tweak. All right, so that's business B. We all with me? Is it as heavy as I said? Yes and no's. Okay, yeses and no's. Okay. So we are also here as we go through when you start working kind of through your personal piece of this. Let's go to business A, please. Can the back of the room see that or no? Need a little bigger, Sorry. How about now? Okay, I got a thumbs up. Same business. So I'm going to go through it one more time because I want people to understand it. Everything in red is an input. What does input mean? You're going to put your own number in there, okay? So when it's in red, it's an input. So the input, I got $502,000. My desire, do you think you can change this to $3 million? That's really weird. So this is going to show the end result, not necessarily what I intended, but I can work with it, right? So this was $3 million, the same RO, the same return at 8%. This age was 65, okay? And the monthly retirement income was the same as the goal, for business B at 25,000. You guys with me on that? What you're seeing is the tweak that business A has to make to get remotely close to their retirement goal because they're not business B and they don't have a business to sell at the end. My demonstration is backwards based on the fact that this thing is locking us out. Randy?
Didn't they both have the same retirement savings to begin with?
They both have the same.
Like the retirement value on this one is more than the retirement value on the last one. It was-
Because they're working 5 more years.
Oh, okay.
So if this input was working, then this would say the same number, this would say 65, and this would say 25,000, right? But it's not. Scroll, please. Everything else here is the same, except I made one change, and I think this is important for people to see. I actually said that business A can save 10% instead of 5%. Why? Less employees, they got more money. Right? I mean, they're at 400, it's like what Randy was saying. She's trying to grow, which means she's eroding her profit because she's spending money on people. So business B can't put the same amount in because of that investment. So I want to be fair with this analysis and make sure that we're looking at it the right way. So I doubled the number and made it 10%. That make sense? So all the way through this time period, they're contributing double what business B is. They're also working double of what business B is. So as we go down, different here, you'll see profit percentage is loaded at 80% instead of the 55. And so their profit dollars are 400,000. So now let's go to the set your sales targets. So in the set your sales targets, to increase sales, we left it at flat for the first 5 years because we said they're not able to grow their sales, right? They're kind of just run into this glass ceiling. So they're not getting any growth over that time period. So you're just seeing the numbers flat, 80% margin, 200,000 all the way through. We wanted to get to that number where I said they could grow and get to 550 in their last year, so we gave them a 1% increase for the second round of 5 years. That make sense, everybody? So that is this input column here, where you're deciding over a time period how much do you think you're going to grow your business. So you're going to do a lot of forecasting when you work on this by saying, these are the things I need to do. So consider it almost reverse engineering where you want to go. Because once you get there, then you got to come back and put the plan in. Bill?
Your average sale, you looking for the one time or you looking for lifetime value?
The average sale you're looking for one time. And actually, thank you, Bill, because I didn't point that out. Can you go back up? These are some of the numbers we asked you to bring. I don't remember if I pointed this out, but you having an awareness of what your average sale is for your business right now. And when you calculate average sale, just to remind you, you don't want to throw out the big and the low. A lot of times people are like, oh, I don't want to count this one because they weren't a good customer. You can't control what you're bringing in. So when you throw a net out and you bring in business, you get what you get, right? So big and small is what creates our average. So whatever your revenue is divided by the number of transactions is your average sale. What we work on in your 5 ways calculation. That's the number that you're going to be inputting there because that's what's going to help you make this work. Does that make sense? All right, let's go back down. So as you go all the way to the bottom, you're going to see that we made this work out. All right? When I did it, if it was working, you would see that this individual was short over $1 million, right? So business A was short over $1 million. And the reason is they've got nothing to sell at the end. So they're working their ass off for the 10 years. Remember that this person is tired and ready to retire. Business B is happy and go lucky and floating into retirement. And I know I'm being dramatic with those variances, but they're not that off. What we had to do to get business A to be able to retire was a handful of things. One, we had to lower the amount of money that they have as a goal to save, which also meant we're reducing their monthly income, which is a really bad idea, as Al articulated, because really you need more. You're off all the time, which means you're spending more. There's health, there's rising costs, there's all sorts of you never knows coming into your future that you need to look at. So if you go back up to the top, you will notice that the same business owner has to retire with almost $1.5 million less, even though they had the same model. They had to work 5 years longer and way harder than the other business. And they're living off of $5,000 less a month than the other business was. Right? And still a little bit short on the retirement goal. And when you go to the dentist, they have conversations with you about all sorts of things that you shouldn't be doing. And you go through all the cleanings and the whatevers and the cavity checks and did you floss and did you do this and did you do that? And in the end, you walk out of there better. When you work on your financials and you look at the nuts and the bolts and the details like this, you're going to send us a thank you note in 10, 15, 20 years. Because you're going to have achieved the goal. So I warned everybody today that this is not always, this is typically for the new folks. We don't really get into the nuts and bolts of things like this all the time. We'll work on things and you'll see the afternoon session, is really about planning. But there's a big void that I'm seeing out there in the small business community as it relates to proper planning. And I'm not trying to become your retirement planner. I'm trying to be the business coach that says, understand where you want to go financially by working with a good planner who tells you what you need. And then let's get your business there because we can. You absolutely can because the levers are yours to pull. So we don't want anybody to be this guy, reaching his desired retirement age and then going, ah, shit, I gotta work 5 more years. And by the way, the business will most likely, and I didn't calculate this, it'll most likely decline from 65 to 70. Why? Older? What else? Health? Attitude? I don't want to work anymore. I'm tired. I'm burnt out by my business. I got to put 5 more years in. They're probably not going to be my best years because I don't want to be here in the first place. So that 5 might turn into 7. But we have control of it right now. Matt and I have been talking a lot about what 2024 looks like in coaching. And one of the things that is a common theme has been vitamin coaching versus aspirin coaching. And making sure that we're focused on taking business vitamins, doing things like this, doing the things that continuously move your business forward versus only being focused on the shit that just happened, right? That you need help with and it should be part of, but isn't really the only thing. So, as we go into this next part with a dream and a hope that the calculator works, we're going to email all of you, so get your computers out. The Wi-Fi is Drive Shack, so go to Drive Shack events, yes. So some can go to guests. I would encourage you probably to go to events. Events, the password is Drive Shack, all lowercase. One word. You're going to get an email with this calculator. It is completely locked in the sense that you cannot do an input on anything that shouldn't be input. So you can't break it, which is good. I know that we are working on something very personal. So the other piece of it is, if you want to round up, down numbers, feel free, right? Just to get a feel for the exercise. But the whole purpose of this is to work through these numbers, is to start seeing where you're at and why. Because we're going to then take this and carry it into the afternoon session. So when we look at 90-day plans, one of the things that I'm pushing, and Matt is pushing as it relates to clients, is have a plan directly focused, at least some piece of it, on how you are scaling and growing to get yourself to your desired financial and emotional vision for your business and your firm. Questions? Val?
The percentage that you're putting in that is contributed towards retirement, like the monthly percentage?
Yep.
Does that assume that that money comes out of your business, goes to like a 401k or an IRA or something?
Anything that would compound growth at 5%.
So how do you account for like a cap on that at some point?
Oh, like 401k? Yeah, so, I mean, assuming you wouldn't overfund your 401k, then it would go into something else that is also growing at 5%. You got another answer to that, Al?
No, that's correct, but you have to adjust it for one's tax deferred, and the other one's gonna be taxable annually.
Right.
The other one is it saves you money in your 401k because you don't pay taxes for your company either, so
Right.
there's a lot of advantages to having it through the retirement account.
Yeah. Yeah, and so a couple things here. We are going to continue to work on this, and bring in some planners and continue to get it closer and closer to truly, you know, a maybe even some help with tax and whatnot. But this is a really, really good range and a lot closer than where a lot of people are. So for today and for our sort of go forward together, this is a great start for you, right? To just really work on what exactly does my business need to do. I'm going to revisit my statement of, I know this is personal, so feel free to move around, take your laptop to different places. Matt and myself are here to help and answer questions. One more time, Matt, if you can just go to the top. Joe, did you hit send, Joe? Okay. The inputs are in red, and that is where you are going to make your own decisions as it relates to what you want, and everything else will calculate. You know, if you go down, a little bit more, Matt, please. Just to the bottom part. Yep, right here. So where it says increased sales percent, think about it in 6-month increments. So it could be 5, it could be 20. You could start strong and slow it down. If you got a lot of rapid growth right now, you focus on the rapid growth right now. All an input, and then your profit percentage. You know, again, remember, this is sort of reverse engineering and assessing. You'll have to just use some ranges right now for that profit percentage, but kind of use your head as it relates to, all right, I'm going to add payroll. What's that payroll going to cost? Okay, great. So then once you understand what that payroll costs, you can work your way to pulling that off of the profit percentage and then inputting that, as Randy said. So where are we with time?
Way over.
Way over. Okay. Pauses didn't help. Let's see. So we're going to take next 20 minutes to kind of work through your own input. It should be on your computer now. And then for clients, we'll continue to carry this through in our coaching sessions. Non-clients, you'll certainly have an opportunity to connect with us a little bit more. Any other questions? All right, so let's take some time, do it how you want to do it, and let's work through it. So, Matt, take it away.
And speaking of snafus, we always seem to have one or two, and today ran into a very interesting one. But I think everybody, at least I hope everybody, got the gist of the calculator. And obviously, that is now yours to keep, and there will be better and more updated versions coming, so we can continue to use that tool as a way to, as Reeve said, connect our emotional vision with our financial vision. Because what we're finding more and more is that those two things are not very well aligned, and they're not meeting in the same place. And so I kind of wanted to ask, because as he and I were playing with the tool, and we worked it to a point and then found a guy that could get it to where it is right now, obviously some very eye-opening things, right? As you're going through it, you start thinking about, well, what have I been saving for the past 10, 15 years? Why did I buy this? Why did I buy that? How am I going to change some of my behaviors going forward, not just in my business, but maybe in my personal life, right? So for those of us getting up to, I believe you said the middle-ish ages region, as I stand under a light and everything shines off the top of my head, we start to pay a little closer attention to those kind of things. And so I'm curious if anybody feels like sharing, if they had any kind of eye-opening, yes, this is great, or eye-opening, ooh, I have some work to do from going through the calculator exercise. Nobody wants to share anything.
Work to do.
Work to do. What do you mean, Bill?
Future, I think what you guys talked about before about, as you're getting older, like right here, will we be able to keep the same pace leaving the country? And if we can't, then should we not be projecting sales to be at the same level we're at now? Or Michelle brought up, maybe bring up a salesperson, right, to help supplement that. So more questions.
Yep, exactly. And trying to figure out how long you're going to live, which is difficult. But, work can take a toll. And just through the exercise of business A and business B, right, we're trying to move people towards the type of business and building the type of business, I don't want to say that's going to extend lives, but that will give you some quality of life while you're still a business owner that may make you want to work longer because the work that you're doing is more enjoyable, it's less stressful, it's providing more for you and your family, and you're only working on the things you actually enjoy doing within your business because you've figured out either how to systematize, automate, or hire to take care of all those areas that you're doing right now that you don't really like to do. And I know there's some people in the room that have started to move that direction and have really gone a long ways in that direction. And they're the ones that seem to look a little happier, right? And then there's those of us that are still grinding in the business every day that want to get out of the hot sun. Right, Lalo? Yeah. No more hot sun for Lalo. That is our goal for him. He is not going to work next summer out in the sun. And that's a clear vision. It's an emotional vision, right? And we need to be able to connect some of that financial vision to make sure he can do that, right? One more time. Anybody want to share? Okay, Pedro. Thank you, sir.
I can say that it's hard to share because I'm so below the bar after watching that, and that I really, it's eye-opening because I need to move from there and move along. So if you ask me now, I think it's impossible to do what I'm supposed to do. So that's why I didn't want to share. But now I'm sharing what I think is impossible.
Anybody else feel like that?
I will say something different.
Exactly. David, how about you?
Just a real opportunity to look at how to leverage existing assets for additional cash flow and how to think more strategically about how it doesn't need to be me, it can be someone else or create the infrastructure. Because I love to initiate, drive, pioneer, and then let it go. Creating the structure around it so that can continue.
Sure, exactly. Thank you. And it's important on that document, on that spreadsheet. It's the first time you've seen it. It got a little clunky up here. Don't let that dissuade you from wanting to use it in the future because it works. The inputs are simple, right? And all you need to do once you get those set inputs in the top is start working through how much am I going to grow my business and my average sale on a monthly, bi-monthly, and a 6-month window. And then it does all the math for you. You can see where you fall out. But similar to what David said and what Pedro alluded to, the beauty is you have choices, right? It's very, very easy, as Arif mentioned these two earlier in the day, to be the victim when you run through that calculator. This is going to be too hard. It's going to be impossible, right? There's too much work to do. I'm never going to reach those numbers. This is unrealistic. My business doesn't work this way. Those damn millennials. It's still my favorite. Everyone blames millennials these days. For the record, it is your job to meet the millennials where they are as a business owner, as a manager, and try to manage them up. I'll just leave that aside. So no one come to me and say it's the millennials' fault. But also you just have choices, right? What is your mindset going to be as you work through that calculator and you see those numbers? Maybe they seem like they're in reach. Maybe they don't, right? But we need to work that emotional vision and match it up with our financial vision. So we have a couple choices. We can look at it like it's going to be too difficult and we can't get there, or we switch our mindset around and realize that we are where we are, right? The business is where it is right now. We all need to look in the mirror about that because our business is where it is because of things we've chosen to do and not chosen to do. And now we have a choice to move things forward, to use that sheet to understand what are the things we're missing and what are the things we need to start to implement to get a little bit closer to where we want to be, right? And the beauty is, those that make those choices, we're going to be in this room in a year, right? We're going to be right here. And I promise you, there will be a few of you that have unbelievable success stories because you made the right choices and because you had the right mindset based on the information that came back to you. You're going to stand up and do that wind wall, You're going to say, man, that growth club we did where you threw out that clunky calculator really resonated. And I made a choice when I walked out of here to look at it as an opportunity, right? So what is your mindset going to be as you continue to work through there and understand how it's going to affect your future and how you're going to choose to let it affect your future? Because we all have choices. Oh, I got it. Hang on. I'll have choices to go into IT. You don't need to read all these, but as you get that mindset right, and use the rest of today to think about that mindset and think, okay, I'm going to tackle this. As I work through those every month, looking through what improvements and increases I need in my average sale, I can do that. But how am I going to do it? It needs to start with asking the right questions. Right? You need to be taking a fine look at your business, and I saw a few of you who have multiple people here from the same business asking each other some of those questions, right? What areas of our business need to improve the most to meet these goals, right? You should immediately think of where are we weak, right? Where can we be stronger? What are our opportunities? What are things that I thought about doing for a long time but haven't done? Maybe there's things a coach has suggested to you that you should do that you continue to put off because it's too difficult, too time-consuming, and you haven't gotten yourself out of the business to where you can work towards those things. Do I have the right team? That's a super, super important one, right? A couple growth clubs ago, we spent a lot of time talking about team, leadership, building other people, providing opportunity, inclusion. But at some point, you as the boss have to have a hard look. And do I have the right people to get me to where my financial vision needs to be? Maybe I need to make some changes. Maybe I need to outsource, right? Maybe there's other opportunities that I need to take advantage of. The good old 5 ways, which for those of you who are new in the room, you will see a little bit later. For those of you who are clients, you know 5 ways well. Which area of my 5 ways is weak? The whole idea of that program is to be able to quickly pinpoint areas that are underperforming and make adjustments and improvements. As we talked about last Growth Club, are we using AI properly? Or are we least committed to learning about AI? Right? Last Growth Club, we went through a lot of different exercises, showed a lot of different tools, and we weren't trying to be AI experts. We were just trying to continue to impress upon you that if you're not trying to learn and pay attention to what's coming, you're going to fall behind. And AI, there's probably somebody in here who some AI tool could be the difference maker in your business, right? So spend the time to continue to learn, block that time out where you can turn off your distractions, right? And learn a little bit more about what is out there that could help, right? Do I have systems in place? Denise said it very well when she spoke earlier that because they have systematized some areas of their business, she doesn't need to touch them all the time, right? And imagine as an owner or a salesperson, if you start to systematize and automate, that frees up your time. So it not just makes things more consistent and easier to repeat and easier to hand to an employee, it gives you time to go promote and sell your products and services. Or gives you time to go find somebody that's really good at doing that, okay? So there's always a 2-pronged approach to when you're creating things within your business. What it's going to give your business right now, and then it's what it's going to allow you as the owner to go do, go learn, go capture, and go figure out. Right? And then what does success look like? Well, to me, it looks like that bottom right-hand number on that calculator turning green. Right? I don't know if you noticed, but as you work through, when you get to the number, based on your increase in sales and profit, that box turns green. I filled it out multiple times and scrolled down with my eyes closed and then opened them. Like, damn it. More sales, better sales. What do I need to do to keep improving those things for my other business? And that's a really important piece, right? And so as Arif mentioned, for me, being a business owner, hiring a coach, and the hook that got me was we're trying to build a business that can work without you. I'm like, well, that sounds nice. I hadn't thought of that. I was the legend guy. I wanted to be the legend in my business. I thought that would make a lot of sense until I realized That doesn't make any sense because what the heck am I going to do to it when I don't want to work anymore? So removing myself from the business by putting in systems and people to move things forward without me. Okay? So first step after mindset is questions. Asking yourself different things about your business on how we can make improvements and get closer to that financial vision that we talked about. And so the important part of this is what I always seem to talk about when I'm up here, and that is self-awareness. We talk a lot about above and below the point, right? We use DISC, which we're going to talk about a little bit, but really understanding why the numbers in that sheet are what they are, right? What could you have done differently over the years, over the months, made different decisions, hired different people that maybe would have advanced it a little bit further? And even if your goal isn't to retire at 55 with $10 million, that's fine, right? But that doesn't mean there's not efficiencies that could be found and could be made. So it's super important to take a moment and think about internal factors, right, that have stopped us from achieving goals in the past.